Hey everyone, I wanted to go over the showdown slate tonight from a DraftKings DFS perspective. And the first things first, I always like to just go to a sports book and just see how the game is expected to look. So we have a very low total, 30 half, and we have the Steelers favored by about one score at a 6 point favorite, and they are around minus 250 to win the game. And that's the baseline information that I want to know when I'm going to be playing a showdown is just, you know, what these metrics look like. Then from there, we can, hypothesize who we think is going to be a good play. Well, low total, so I imagine running backs, kickers, defense, maybe one of the QBs, and that's pretty much exactly what it is, to tell you the truth. And I get my projections from True DFS. Um, you know, the guys over there, Eric Haber, aka Sheets, Goldie, you know, all very good at what they do, and the projections that they provide are the best I can find for the most affordable price. So that is what I use, and you know, that's that. So I can't just go over and show you all their projections just out of respect for their platform and members that have paid for them. But I have ranked some of my favorite plays um, based on those projections, and I have divided them among the teams and the certain sections of each team. So at QB, uh, Trubisky is obviously a better play than Zap. He's actually noticeably a better play than Zap. Um, Not much to say there. Has a much higher yardage total, and he's expected to throw for more TDs than Bailey as well. So no surprise there. That should make sense. And he's the favored QB in general. The favored QB is always going to rate higher than the underdog QB. Just general stuff. And then defense, the favored defense, Steelers are rating the best, and then obviously there's only two defenses, Patriots and Steelers. But yeah, the Steelers rates the best, but both of them rate to be somewhat good plays on this specific game. And then kickers, the Pittsburgh kickers obviously get rated a little bit better because they're projected to score more points. And then the running backs. Now it gets interesting here because I personally like Warren a bit more, and I don't really have an amazing reason. I mean, they're both projected to score at the same odds. I imagine they both have roughly the same rushing yards. I mean, Warren a little bit more. Um, but I just this intuition. I like Warren as like a bit more if I had to choose one, and he also is a bit cheaper than Najee Harris as well. Yep. Yeah. So I mean, out of the two, I like Warren, but they both rate to be good. New England, Ezekiel Elliott. He's gonna be 1,000,000% owned, I'm sure. But how can you avoid him? I mean, what other weapon does this Patriots team have to get the ball up the field and to score points? So Ezekiel Elliott, highest rushing total out of everyone, and if New England does happen to score a touchdown in this game, it's more than likely through Elliott. So obviously an elite play on the New England side. And I'm not messing around with the whole like $200 running backs that are going to get more usage because of Stevenson being injured. I'm just going to go Elliott. I don't like to mess around with the cheapos. Just in my style of play, at least right now, that's not what I do. Um, and then we got Pittsburgh's receivers. Deontay Johnson is rating to be the best, and to tell you the truth, I actually do like the tight end. Um, yeah, I do like Pat to be a good lower owned, lower projected Pittsburgh receiver. Uh, Again, I can't really give you a great reason why. That's more of just my intuition for this game. I mean, you can see they're all relatively all the Pittsburgh receivers are relatively uh, the same probability to score, and yeah, I just favor Pat in this spot, and I do like him more than maybe his projection suggests. And then the New England receivers, Devontae Parker and Hunter Henry. I do like Devontae Parker a bit more, but you know those are pretty much the only two weapons um, for uh, for Bailey to target. There was one more that I think I faded that might have been a surprise to some people. Juju Smith. Yeah, I don't have him. I just I just prefer Parker and Henry over him. But he's not necessarily a bad play. Um, but yeah, Hunter Henry, Devontae Parker, both noticeably better. So now let's talk about how I would approach building a lineup on this game. Well, if I wanted to make the safest, best lineup, I'd probably start with Elliott at captain, maybe. Then go to Trubisky. Get Warren in there. Steelers defense. Pittsburgh kicker, and then Devontae Parker. Maybe. I mean, that's not exactly safe. Let's see what we can do here. Is there anyone better we can get than Devontae Parker? Not really. So maybe we could do that, and then maybe something like that. If I wanted to build, you know, a safe lineup. Um, but what I want to talk about is, how I would expect to build lineups in an MME contest setting. Now I only play the 20 max, but even still, in this contest, you're still playing against 100,000 other lineups, so you still have to kind of treat it like an MME. Um, so number one is, and this is what I like to do a lot, is picture how a game might look. And what I mean by that is just the other night we were a Jamar Chase reception away from taking down the entire FanDuel MME on that showdown. Because what I did is I had Jamar Chase in my captain spot, and the Bengals QB and Mixon, and then I brought it back with Engram and the other receiver. I can't remember his name right now. But basically, that lineup was saying, "Hey, what does it look like when the Bengals keep this game extremely close, if not win?" And the game played out that way, so my lineup did well. That's something you can do, is you can come up with a, not necessarily a prediction, but just a condition. So, okay, for example, the condition is this game outperforms expectation and there's 40 points at least scored. So it's a high scoring game and the Steelers win by one score. Okay. Well, if the game plays out that way, what would a good lineup look like? Well, it could look like Trubisky and the captain with a double stack, right? And then it could look like a bring back with Bailey, um, and one of his receivers, right? Maybe even two. Maybe it looks like that with a double stack with 2 receivers for each QB. Now, in a nutshell, this lineup is not good, right? Based on what's expected, this is not good. But what happens when there's an outlier? What happens when there is a large amount of points scored in this game? Then all of a sudden, this lineup is super low owned, super contrarian, and that's one way to get different and get unique. And that's what I call this, a condition. You're just setting the condition. This game looks this way. Okay, then what did the lineups look like in the case that you're right about how the game looks? Yeah, basically you're just using a combination of um reverse engineering, like one thing happens, what does the other thing happen look like? And then you also want to use correlation too. So if I'm saying it's going to be a really high scoring game, I'm correlating with the QBs with their wide receivers, if that makes sense, right? Okay, so that's one way to do it. Another way to get unique is to dive into these cheapos, which is not my thing. That's just not what I like to do. Um, I'd rather build many different combinations up in this range than have a bunch of these punts on these low salary guys that are going to put up 0 points more often than not. That's just how I prefer to play. Um, but that's one thing you could get a low owned cheapo and get your lineup unique that way. And then the third way is you could still follow the narrative of the game. So let's try that. So we'll go Warren and the captain with Elliott, with Trubisky, and then Steelers, right? Um, and then maybe we get to. Oh, we don't have a captain yet. I want to get Warren and the captain. Yep. Okay, so then we have 6.4K left. Then we can do the kicker, and then Pat in the last spot. Like, see, something like this would be like this looks like a good lineup. Number one, but number two, it's probably going to be duped 10 million times. So how we can make it different is instead of getting the Steelers defense and the kicker, maybe we get Bailey and we take out Pat, um, put in Parker, and then we get New England kicker. Um, even this is still pretty chalky. Um, but basically, what I'm trying to show is that another way to get unique is to leave salary on the table. So let's try that one more time. So Trubisky, Warren, uh, Elliott, Zap, Parker. Um, that might be a bit too chalky. We can take out him, put in Pat, and then okay, instead of having the Steelers defense, which would be like the obvious choice, we could go down to Hunter Henry and leave 1,400 left. Now, this lineup is obviously not going to project as good as a lineup that uses all of its salary, but that's one way to get unique. Is just leaving money on the table because it's uncomfortable to do, and it's not you know technically how you're supposed to do it because an optimizer's job is to get the most points per the given salary, and so leaving salary on the table generally doesn't uh, do that when you use an optimizer. So you could set a rule to say max salary of whatever you want at 48,500 or something like that. So yeah, those are 3 ways to get unique. Build a contrarian lineup by setting a condition and then reverse engineering it to okay, what does it look like when that condition happens? I talked about the condition for my example being the game is high scoring. And then the second way is to get a low owned cheapo, and then which is what I don't really like to do. And then the third way is by forcing salary to be left on the table. So I hope that helps. Once again, here's kind of my short list of players that I like. Um, Once again, you do have to find ways to get unique because it doesn't help you that much if you know that these are like the good plays, right? You still have to find a way to get different and mix that chance of winning with the chance of being unique, which is, that's what DFS is about, is finding a lineup that has somewhat of a chance to win, but also is 10 times less duped than a lineup that's rates a little bit better than it, if that makes sense, right? Like an example I like to give is, let's say you have a lineup that has a 50% chance of winning, but when that lineup wins, it only wins $1,000. But you have another lineup that has a 25% chance of winning, but when that lineup wins, it's going to win $10,000. Obviously, you want the second lineup. It's just going to take a longer sample for you to realize that EV. Yeah, so that's it. Look at the game totals and just the Vegas lines, get an idea of what the game is expected to look like, then go through the individual plays and figure out what spots you like, and then from there, figure out how you can get different and tailor your lineups for what contest you're going to play. And this is all from a hand building approach, which is what I do normally. Um, but there's many great optimizers and sims out there, Saber Sim, Stochastic, you name it. But it's just they're a bit expensive, and I want to help people build lineups without using that technology. So I hope this helps. Um, and best of luck to everyone tonight if you're playing in this showdown for this horrendous game. But that's all for me.